And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Benched with Bubba, continuing our team-by-team season previews to get you ready for the 2023 fantasy baseball season. And we go to the NL West, to the Los Angeles Dodgers, probably one of the best teams in all of baseball. Not probably, one of the best teams in all of baseball for real life and for fantasy. So we will have fun breaking this whole squad down. In order to break them down, as a friend of mine, a friend of the show, a friend of the fantasy world. You can find his wonderful work over on FTN Fantasy and on Twitter at RotoGut. Vlad Sedler, how you doing, my friend?
What's up, Bubba? Always good to chat with you. And looks like we do this usually about once a year. Talk a little
Yep.
Dodgers, throw a little Giants in there. It's always fun.
Yep. Always a good time. Before we get rocking and rolling, let everybody know what you got going on FTN because you are a busy, busy man.
Yeah, it's ftnfantasy.com. Sign up. Actually, can use promo code Sedler to get 20% off. But basically, just loaded with content, NFBC points, dynasty, auction, whatever you need. We got it. Got you covered. On Twitter, I'm at RotoGut.
Yeah, a lot of great content over there. The draft guide's awesome. Good people, good stuff. And you get, the VDP and all the good stuff. So you better sign up for that. Enjoy it and have some fun. But let's talk Dodgers. This is a fun team as always. And, they lost a couple pieces in Trey Turner and a few others, but still loaded team. Nothing to worry about there. And we'll start up top with Mookie Betts. Over the last 2 weeks, has an ADP of 10. He's got the power. He's got the speed. He scores a million runs. He's got, average. He went 7th in the labor draft. What are our thoughts on Mookie Betts in the 2023?
Well, I mean, first of all, just looking at the Dodgers as a whole, I think it's kind of worth noting that this is a different looking roster than we're used to in the past. There's some very clear competition openings. There's some new guys that can really make a push. Guys that I'm sure we'll talk about later in the draft. But it's just a different dynamic. I think the Padres are a little bit closer to this team in general. And it's not just going to be just easy walking away with this division. Obviously, you losing Walker Buehler and everything. Obviously, with Mookie Betts and this team, they're very, very strong up top. But there could be, there could be some bumps along the road. I don't think it's going to be as smooth as many people think. At least until maybe we get Ohtani. We'll see if that even comes to fruition. Um,
Oh,
but yeah, Mookie Betts. It's interesting. There aren't as many Dodgers as you would think in even the top 100 ADP.
yeah.
You basically just have Betts, Freddie Freeman, Urias, and Will Smith. That's really it. But obviously, I think Mookie Betts is a solid first rounder. Not somebody I've been ending up with a lot of shares with. Me, I've got a dozen drafts at this point. But usually at that point in the draft, for whatever reason, and I hate to do it, but I've been taking a Padre. I've been taking Juan Soto over him, kind of looking for a nice little bounce back. I think Mookie, yeah, I think there are going to be some tough things for him to repeat. I don't know if he's going to be able to repeat the 35 homers. That was a career best. It was the first time since 2018 that he hit over 30 homers. So, and 117 runs. It's going to be a lot tougher to score now. No Trey Turner in the mix, a little bit different of a squad there. And I don't know how much he's going to be running either. And he kind of really struggled down the stretch in September. And on top of that, he's not really a 290 hitter anymore as he used to be. He's been in the 260s the last couple of years. So, not saying he's a bust. It's Mookie Betts. I'm sure he'll be great, and he's still only 30 or 29. But he's not like an auto click for me in the middle of the first round.
Yeah, it's at that part of the first round where there's a lot of options. You got your Jordans, injury, no injury discussion there. Bobby Witt, Betts, Vladito, Soto, they're all kind of going around that same pocket. So if you do believe in the Soto bounce back, that's a former top 5 pick. So you can definitely see some appeal there as well. And I think we all agree it's not going to be as bad as it was when he came to San Diego last year. So it should be some promise for Soto too. Freddie Freeman, he's another guy going early. It is funny you mentioned 4 guys in the top 100, like the Braves. I did their show. I think it's 6 guys in the top like 50 or something. Yeah. It's ridiculous. But still, you got Freddie Freeman, ADP of around 15 right now. He's one of the top first basemen outside of Vladito. He's in between Alonso and Vlad. The average is always pretty consistent with Freddie. It's just the power last year kind of struggled a bit. But I think we'd imagine a little better this year. But what's your thoughts on Freddie Freeman, especially at the end of the first round?
Yeah, I mean, that's about as solid as a pick you can get. We always talk about we don't necessarily need to hit a home run with a first round pick, and if you're at the back end of the first round or early second round, just looking to pair pitcher or whatever else you're looking for there, he's great because he is always healthy. He's always going to rack up the plate appearances. He's basically at 158 plus games, like basically playing a full season in 4 of the last 5, not counting 2020. And just looking at the plate appearances, like 708, 695, 692, 707, that is incredibly valuable when you think about 700 plate appearances of a guy that basically is hitting 300 every season. Elite batting average, elite plate discipline. Even reduced his strikeout rate last year to under 15%. Stole more bases than he ever has before, 13. Scored as many runs as Mookie Betts last year with 117. And yeah, the drop in power from 31 to 21. But man, it's really hard to imagine him hitting that few home runs again this season. So in many ways, I like Freddie Freeman pretty much almost even more than Mookie Betts this season.
I can see that because it's the consistency, the year after year after year production, and I agree the power should come back. It's like a fun discussion. Then if you think the power comes back, do you like him more than Vlad Guerrero Jr.? That's
Um,
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's still for me, for example, it would still be Vlad Guerrero Jr. Just because of the massive power upside. In the first
Yeah.
round, if you're getting 40 plus home runs, a little bit of you kind of split the difference between the last two seasons on him. You're getting some goodness, but yeah, Freddie Freeman kind of feels underrated just because he's
Yep.
boring every year, which is hard to say for a borderline first, second round pick.
Boring is good. Boring is beautiful, as they sometimes say. Let's go behind the dish here. Will Smith had another really, really strong season for the Dodgers. Played in 137 games, back to back 130 plus games, which is nice from the catcher's position. Pretty consistent numbers in back to back years in the power and the runs production and average. ADP close to 60, which isn't too bad. He's like the third catcher off the board, fourth in some leagues, depending on if someone loves Adley Rushman or not. But Will Smith, what are your thoughts on him going into 2023?
I mean, at some point, you kind of expecting that the big massive season, or so we would hope. But I think it's always a little bit. It's always a bit limited because he is a catcher, because he does need occasional rest days, and especially difficult this season because you've got JD Martinez in the mix, who, as long as
Bingo.
he's healthy, is going to be DHing every single day, which limits Will Smith's opportunities, at least in comparison to last year. So 578 plate appearances last year, 501 the year before. It's probably a good range for him, somewhere around 550. Doubt he gets over 600. When he does hit, it'll be in the middle of that lineup. And he's got great power, pretty solid plate discipline as well. Reduced his strikeout rate last year from 20 down to 16%. He's always at an ISO over 200, always a barrel rate over 10%, always a hard hit rate over 43%. He's one of the best hitting catchers in baseball. And maybe there's another level. Maybe he does get better. But 87 runs is pretty impressive. I'm sorry, 87 RBI is pretty impressive for a guy under 600 plate appearances who happens to be a catcher. So he's worth it. For where he goes in the draft. It's just a matter of how someone is constructing the rosters and if they want to make him a part of it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see the playing time for him this year because with the JD Martinez thing is how many games does that take off of him is the question I have, which will be fun to watch. I still think they want to get him out there as much as possible, obviously. And JD still has to bounce back. If he's kind of producing like he was in Boston, they'll easily put Will Smith at DH for a game
Mm-hmm.
and put JD to the bench. So there's a lot of what ifs, obviously, to look at. But I am intrigued because last year it was easy to give him days off and put him at DH compared to this upcoming season. Max Muncy, this is a fun one. Second base, third base eligible. ADP around 137, 138 the last couple weeks. We all kind of know the story. The average was really bad last year, but the second half was much, much better. Still walked a ton, which was good to see. Like the second half wasn't elite by any means, but it was much better than the first half. Let me clarify. And there's kind of some optimism. I'm still scared because he never had the surgery to begin with, but there was promise this past year to see some development as the season went on. So, what's your thoughts on Muncy for 2023?
Yeah, it's a couple things here. It's the health and the elbow, and if he does end up playing 130 plus games again, he should easily hit value at that ADP, so long as it doesn't move up into the top 100. And it also has to be a roster construction fit. I have to understand that this is somebody that could hit around the Mendoza again. I think it's more likely that he's in the 220 to 250 range. But it's not out of the realm of possibility that you are taking on a lot of batting average risk at that time. So you want to be, you have a Soto, Freddie Freeman start. You can absorb a little something like that if you want some power there. But again, this is a guy that previous to last season, In the 3 full years before that, I mean, I think he's one of only 2 or 3 guys who had 3 straight seasons of 35 home runs. So the power is legit. He's one of the walk rate leaders over the last few years. He's basically always over 15%, which is very impressive. And he'll have a clutch lineup spot there in the middle of the lineup, have a lot of opportunities to produce. I was kind of off the Muncy train earlier in the season, just wanted, or earlier in draft season, wanted no part of it. And lately, I've been clicking on that button around his ADP, sometimes even before. Problem is, a lot of people seem to be on the same train. When you think of like cleanup hitter for the Dodgers, or number 3 hitter, like it's a good spot to be in. So it's really just the average, the health, and roster construction fit.
Yeah, I've been clicking that button a lot as well because for me, it's everyone talks about the third base cliff after like Bregman and Gunnar. Well, Muncy fits right in there if you want to go that direction. And is the health is the concern, but that's also why he's going at that ADP. If we knew he was healthy, he'd be going in the top 100, probably being the 30 plus home run guy. So I've been intrigued. I'm gonna probably have to temper it down and spread out my resources eventually, but I'm with you on the Muncy train. You mentioned JD Martinez already. He got signed, obviously, from the Red Sox as a free agent, but ADP of 202 last year. Still hit for a decent average at 274, but the power was completely gone from JD Martinez. Going to be 35, which kind of surprised me when I saw that. I'm like, he's that old already, which, we're older than that, but for baseball terms, 35. What's your thoughts on JD? Because maybe new place, old coaches, stuff like that could be a good thing.
I mean, I like him a lot. Even I think that the key is I mean, it's pretty obvious. But if you have Otani, do not draft JD Martinez, especially in a draft champions. You don't want to be stuck in that spot. As a matter of fact, my very first DC in December, I timed out. I had Otani as my first round pick. I think it took him like 12th overall. And later on in the draft, my one timeout was JD Martinez.
Oh,
So I'll be in
man.
a pickle there. Yeah, with 2 utility guys. But I think if you take away the utility, if he's not getting, probably won't get the outfield eligibility. But if he did, it's a guy it would be a top 100, top 120 pick.
Yeah.
I think drop off in production last year really wasn't all that insane. It was just really a big difference with RBIs, nearly 40 less runs batted in, 12 less homers in nearly the same amount of plate appearances, about 38. But everything else kind of matched up. Last 2 seasons, barrel rate was around the same, 12.5%. On base percentage, walk rate, strikeout rate, everything very similar over the last couple of years. Reunited with the guy that helped him get going back in the day, hitting coach Robert Van Scoyoc, and could be a really good fit. So I like it, and I'm into him. There was some initial kind of pause when he first signed, and I just wanted no part of it. And it's funny how that works. I hope it's not like a bias that because I like the Dodgers, like all of a sudden I was like, oh, no Muncy or Martinez for me, and now I'm like all about both of them.
Well, they're in good spots in a good lineup, and the ADPs are very, very intriguing for the talent level. So it's not crazy to think about. Now we get into the deeper parts of the lineup here, and we'll start with Gavin Lux, ADP of 226. This offseason has been up and down for Gavin Lux, playing time with guys moving and signing and doing other things. Hit for average last year in his first full run with the team, but still power and speed is, I don't know if it's what people are wanting from Gavin Lux. I've always been out on Gavin Lux until he proves to me otherwise. What's your thoughts on him going into 2023?
Yeah, I'm not as bullish as I have been in the past, and maybe this is the year that ends up hurting me. And the thing about fantasy, I mean, you can't just say, oh well, he's going to burn me. Well, everything you can do in every round of the draft can burn you or can help you. No one guy is really gonna thwart you. And the fact that I don't think that his upside, I don't think he's going to ever be an upside to the point where he can be a second or third round pick. I don't think he's all of a sudden going to be hitting 30 home runs and stealing 20 plus bases, because I just don't think that is who he is. He is a former first round pick. He was a very highly rated prospect, and I think he'll be a really solid major leaguer. He added 20 pounds over the offseason, wants to improve bat speed, and there's some positives here. For example, like I don't think he's going to hit under 10 home runs this year. I think you'll see the power tick up a little bit. I think without being kind of jerked around and not being in a platoon and just sticking one place as the team shortstop, hopefully somewhere like hitting 7th, 6th. I think he can gain some momentum. I think he can hit for average, improve his plate discipline and get you like a 15-15 season. I think it's within the realm. That said, just have not been clicking that button just because there are just other plays usually that I'm more interested in that I think can provide a more clear profit for me.
Yeah, he's definitely not a guy I've been clicking. Who do you think put on more muscle, him or Jeremy Pena?
Man, that Jeremy Pena's tricep alone put on more muscle than anyone.
Yeah, I think Hulk Hogan's jealous of that one. He had his vitamins and his milk on that one. Let's go to Miguel Vargas here. He's the Dodgers been raving about him. Said they want to give him the full second base job, which moved his ADP up to the 225s, as high as 182 in the last 2 weeks. Then the news comes out, fractured finger. They're not too concerned about it. They're saying like he should be fine by opening day, assuming he's fine by opening day. How are we feeling about Miguel Vargas? This is a dude that showed some nice power in the minor leagues.
Yeah, I think this is one of those cases where it's just like I don't want to say like he's not, I don't know about future all-star in the making, but just a future solid fantasy pick. And this will be the only time to get him at this price. I think he's going to move up in the lineup as he goes. I don't know how much he's going to run necessarily, but obviously somebody that has run before. I mean, 16 swipes last season in about 500 plate appearances in AAA. He's got some power. I think he's going to be a good contact guy. He's been consistently over 300, a solid on base percentage guy as well. Just over 400 alone in AAA. So I think he'll be a really welcomed addition. And I had been drafting him a lot earlier on. Now the market's sort of caught up, and have not been able to get him at a reasonable price. There comes a lot of times where, I mean, man, he's cracking the top 200. That's a lot tougher of a sell for me. And now you got the finger thing. I think that that's going to affect anything regardless. So basically, just happy I got some early shares at a much cheaper rate. That was beyond ADP 250. But if it creeps into the top 200, I think I would probably be out.
Yeah, got you on that one. A couple other guys here, just if you have any quick thoughts on them. They just signed David Peralta to potentially platoon in the outfield. You got Chris Taylor, who we've seen in the Dodgers uniform for a while and have moments of really good fantasy value. Everyone's looking at Jason Hayward's new approach at the plate. Trace Thompson's out there. Any of those potential outfielder platoon guys of interest for you in fantasy?
Yeah, I mean, the guy that a couple of guys interest me. I think Trace Thompson interests me because something's different with him from his previous days with the Dodgers or with the White Sox pre-pandemic. If you look at all of his power metrics, they've all significantly improved from that previous time period. So I don't know what it is. If he unlocked something, I don't know if he's taken something. I don't want to ever. I guess I kind of am making an assumption when I say something like that, but there has to be a reason for it, and I hope it's a good reason. But if it's legit and it's real, then that's something worth noting. And especially when you're looking at an ADP beyond pick
450.
400,
Oh,
it's good. So him, I'm interested in. I think David Peralta can be streamable at certain points. I think there's just something about when you join the Dodgers and you're around that energy. Some things end up clicking, so you might have a little bit of a bounce back. The guy I'm most interested in actually is James Outman. I would love to see him make the team. I think he's somebody that can be a very viable fantasy asset as early as this season. And I think he's pretty mature, 25-year-old, and I think I think the fact that Jason Hayward is kind of making this late season push and getting all this love. I think that is maybe not great for Outman, but we'll see. We'll see how things happen.
yeah, Altman's got an ADP of 477 over the last 2 weeks. I have a lot of early December, January shares of
Nice.
Outman. So I'm a fan of that. And then they bring Peralta, bring Hayward. I'm like, guys, stop it. Stop
Yeah.
being the Dodgers for like 2 minutes, please. And we'll see what happens. But I guess, you got those two veterans in the way. Probably not going to last the whole season. That's one thing to think about. Let's go to the mound here, and we'll start with Julio Urias. It's been a fun offseason to watch baseball Twitter have issues with Julio Urias. It's a guy that I've talked about on other shows like Toby and Ryan that I've just come to the realization I have to accept he's not going to throw a ton of innings, but his innings are going to be ridiculously quality innings. He's going to rack up a ton of wins along the way, and I just got to kind of accept that's who he is. ADP of almost 60, Vlad. Are we in on Urias again this year, or is it like eventually this quote unquote some people call a luck box going to come running out?
No, there's no luck box. I mean, he's this is my even Dodger bias aside. This has been like a guy that's dominated two of the four primary roto pitching categories for the last couple seasons. He was the SP3 overall last season. And this is considering, if you think about it, a guy that did not eclipse 185 innings, which is still a lot of innings, comparatively speaking, and does not get a lot of strikeouts. He's not more than a K per nine, K per nine guy. Yet still, he was the SP3 because he really induces so much soft contact. He's really tough to hit, and he's a great pitcher. I mean, 2.16 ERA. I hate to say it, just doesn't happen by accident. Your xERA is even under 3. People are looking at FIP and xFIP like closer to 3.5, 4. Well, he continuously there are just some guys that outproduce their expected numbers every single year. Maybe at some point they catch up to him, but he's really good. And 175 innings last season, 31 starts, 185 seasons the season before, 32 starts. And if I'm not mistaken, he's got more than, his wins. Wins is a category, and I understand that it's impossible. They're tough to predict. But over the last 2 seasons, what is it? His lead over the second most amount of wins is insane. It is, what is it? He's got 37 wins over the last 2 seasons. The next best is Garrett Cole at 29.
That's pretty good. 8's a big number for 2 seasons.
Yeah.
No, and I'm with you. I say luck box because there's guys talking about how he gets lucky, he gets all that. But I told you, I've come to the realization that I need to just realize this guy's really, really good, and I need to stop trying to overthink it. Like the first year when he threw the 185, I was like, "There's no way he can throw that many innings." Then he did it, and I was worried the second year after that big a jump, and he did it again. It's like, okay, just get over yourself and realize this is who he is, and impressive. Before we go to the rest of the pitchers, I do want to ask, and it could be pure speculation. You could have no answer on this if you want. Everybody talks about it. It's been proven. Like Eno's talked about it. It's in the stats. The Dodgers are phenomenal at limiting the BABIP. A big reason being the shift and everything they do. And you look at the top 10 BABIP guys, like 3 of them are usually Dodgers or something. Like it's proven. How do you think that might affect the pitching staff as a whole this year?
Man, I haven't thought about it, but I'm sure the Dodgers have, and I feel like that's something they're probably thinking about and working smart to address. So they always usually steps ahead of other organizations. So I don't have an answer, but I'm sure the Dodgers do.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I'm wanting to see how that goes and what kind of shift that makes in the stats, as they say. Let's talk Clayton Kershaw, who dropped out of the Team USA, which I'm glad. I don't know why the heck he'd be doing that when he's already limited on innings to begin with. I know it's because it's something he's always wanted to do. I get it. But for the Dodgers, they got to be happy about that. ADP of 127. It's the old saying, you might not get a lot of innings, but you're going to get very, very quality innings when Kershaw takes the bump. Are you in at an ADP of 127?
I haven't been much, but I just started having shades of trying to be on a different plane than the masses and thinking, okay, he's had 2 seasons of 120 innings and everyone has him for that range. No one thinks he's going to make more than 23, 24 starts. But what if? What if a guy that had a 2.28 ERA last season is, still elite, 34 years old? What if he has that season, that Verlander type season? I think it's definitely within the realm of possibility. I haven't really checked up much on his health. I don't, his durability. I think there are obviously some issues there, probably a long shot, but talent wise, what if you get more than the 22 starts and you have yourself a true, Verlander type freak that helps you crush your leagues?
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't really gotten there yet either, but if you get like an ace or maybe 2 and get real aggressive on pitching early, he'd be a heck of a 3 if you went there. I'm not saying that's what you would do. You'd probably have to be a 2, but you never know. Could be an interesting build with Kershaw. Haven't been there yet. Let's talk Tony Gonsolin. Obviously, amazing season last year. Made 24 starts, 2.14 ERA. It's been well documented how good he is. ADP of 183. Everyone's preaching regression. Well, obviously, probably won't be that good, but could still be pretty good. Not gonna say he's not gonna be pretty good. What's your thoughts on Gonsolin?
Yeah, I think it's just a health and durability thing, and obviously last season was kind of concerning. But I didn't even realize he only had 1 loss. I was just thinking back to all those games last season. But man, he just always getting run support. Made 24 starts and had decisions in 17 of those. So won 16 of those games, and was just like rock solid every single week. I remember just watching him, and I was heavily invested. My only concern ever with him was obviously the health, but his control and the walk rate, and he really reeled that in, brought that walk rate down to 7% last year. It had been all over the board previously, but he had never really had a season where he could would start in full. And obviously the end results were great. And it's impossible to have a 2.14 ERA really, unless you are Verlander or something like that, and not have expected numbers like way above that. It's pretty clear. And so I don't know. I feel like everyone is kind of off of him, and everyone is hating on him. And man, I feel like I should be in more than I am, right? And it's not out of loyalty. It's not just because
Yeah.
we nailed him last year and we're going back to the well. I mean, every season is its own animal. But man, I mean, he already was an incredible run preventer previously. Had like basically an ERA under 3 through his first whatever it was 150 innings in his career. But he just doubled down on it this past season, held the opposing batters to a 170 average, and had a .87 WHIP. He was pretty damn good. He might be underrated.
He might be underrated. I think what you said right out the gate that's keeping him down is the health concern. That's the only thing I think it is. If we knew he's going 160 plus, which he could easily do if he stays healthy, that could be a gift at 183. So I'm with you on that one. That might be something to reevaluate in my book going forward. But I think it's been more of a concern and taking hitters maybe in that range compared to pitchers. But we'll see how that goes. Noah Syndergaard, ADP at 298. First clips coming out of spring, velocities coming up, all this stuff. You know how it goes. But what are the expectations for Syndergaard in LA? Like when I saw he signed there, I'm like, hey, if there's any team that can fix this, this is definitely one of them. So I'm a little curious, but not heavily invested.
Yeah, I mean there was a time when before he was even signed by the Dodgers, I don't think a lot of people were clicking on him. He had an ADP over 350. He signed with the Dodgers, and he's kind of hanging around like the low 300s. And now, as people get a little bit more in tune with starting pitchers, you start to see them go a little higher. In some of my bigger DCs, you're seeing them go even like around 250, right? Because all it takes is a little bit for people to for the needle to be moved, and that's really the case here, where you're talking about Fabian Ardaya of the Athletic talking about how he was showing an uptick in velocity, early on here, and we know the magic that the Dodgers make. So you could have incredible profit here on somebody that was didn't look good at all last year. I did not care for him at all last season. Couldn't really strike anyone out. 17% walk rate was a massive low, nearly 10% his career average. Almost seemed like a different guy, but maybe he's back. There really is something to investing in Dodgers starting pitchers that happens to work every year. They have the lowest ERA of the last half decade, and so if you're able to get something like that on the cheap, like a Syndergaard, I think it's worth a shot.
And at worst, like Rob Silver preached over and over again at FPAS, draft pitchers on good teams.
Mm-hmm.
So that because for the wins department, as we've talked about, and there's reason Gonsolin had 16 wins, why Urias had 37 in 2 years. They get the run support. They're a good ball club. So see where that takes you as well. Last but not least, here in the starting pitching department, Dustin May, 30 innings last year. If you count the minors, close to 50. The talent hasn't been really arguable. Like he's got these pitching ninjas, one of his favorite people. There's still some walk issues from time to time. It's just health, really. ADP is a 162. I just had a hard time clicking that button because of the health. What's your thoughts on May? Because I could be completely off on this one.
No, I don't think you are. I think you're right on point. I mean, a guy that has pitched basically 50 innings, 53 innings over the last 2 seasons, through the Tommy John and everything. I don't think you can really expect much more than 20 starts this year. You can't really expect much more than 120, maybe 140 innings, and that's really pushing it. And that's a tough price to pay for where he's going around some of the pitchers in that range. So, when I put together my projections and got the VDP flowing, he pops out a lot lower than that. There's just no way I can take him around some of the guys that are going there. He's better suited, guys like around the range of after guys like Drew Rasmussen and Jeffrey Springs, who I expect to throw a lot more innings and could be just as good, if not better, in those innings. So yeah, there's some Dodgers magic, but happening, but can only be on a limited basis. He's kind of the one Dodger pitcher that I'm not really on.
Are there any other potential starters to keep an eye on, like a Ryan Pepio or anybody else for like deep drafts, or just kind of a wait and see approach?
Yeah, I mean, Pepio's, I think, just a guy. He's almost like a placeholder. Dodgers are in a tough spot because if you're looking at this rotation health wise, it does look really shaky, and they're going to have to either call up these rookies, these top prospects, or they're going to have to make some trades. And I think the next two guys on the list, Bobby Miller, Gavin Stone, sounds to me like Bobby Miller is the more a little bit more likely to be a semi-star, but has some control issues, and maybe this may not be the best year for him. But I've seen people going nuts on him in draft champions. I've seen him go within the first 30 rounds, even though we don't even know when he might be called up. Gavin Stone, you have some other people that are more like he's the more like kind of solid, maybe the average major leaguer, but won't hurt you. Could be a good DC value. But I think those are the two main guys in the pen that people are looking at, or in the minor league rotation.
All right, you mentioned Penn. Let's go to the bullpen here, and it's a group right now. Everyone's talking Evan Phillips, Daniel Hudson. That seems to be the kind of 1-2 punch. Gratterall's still there. Vessia's a nice lefty. If you're going into drafts, how are you approaching this Dodgers bullpen?
I've got a ton of Daniel Hudson shares, and most of those are earlier, and that's when he was going past round 300, just because he's the one with a little bit more experience as a closer. Obviously, health issues in the past, but when he's healthy, I think he's pretty legit. Uh, Evan Phillips, the ADP, where I'm seeing him go and where I'm seeing him drafted, I don't necessarily understand. I think we see obviously he's from one season, based on one season, he looks like an elite reliever. But do we really know? I mean, we see guys kind of fall apart the next year, and it's really hard for me to pay, top 200 overall, 250 overall price on a guy that I don't even know is what opportunity he's going to have, especially on a Dodgers team that plans to go with a committee. That's at least their plan going into this. To me, Evan Phillips just seems like a guy that would be better suited for some of the higher leverage roles, maybe like an inning in a third, things like that. So I don't. I think as long as Daniel Hudson's healthy, he'll probably get the most opportunities. But it's wild, right? This bullpen can be anything really. I mean, Shelby Miller can pop up out of nowhere and get the saves. It could be Bruce Gratterall. We've been waiting for a long time. I think it's really all up in the air. But to me, Daniel Hudson is the lead. But now with the price now in the top 250, that's kind of tough to stomach. Like if you're going after closers, yes, if you knew who the Dodgers closer was, then what it would be a top 100 pick, right? But
Mhm.
we don't. It's planned to be a committee. I almost look to try to get like more, solid closers that are not in a committee, so I don't even have to deal with this madness during the season.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. We know the Dodgers rack up the saves, but at the same time, who's going to get the saves makes it a little tricky.
Mhm.
Last but not least, before we head out, are there any potential prospects in 2023? You mentioned Outman; he kind of counts as a prospect
Mhm.
still. Um, Anybody else that we could probably keep on our radar for this year?
Well, their top prospect in the organization is Diego Cartaya. He's a catcher. He's in Double A. He's only 21, but he looks like he could be a future stud. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think he's going to really come into play this season. Um, but I'm thinking that's one of the reasons they let Kyber Ruiz go at the time, or maybe they just weren't buying in him. But this kid looks like definitely looks like a stud. And then I kind of like Michael Bush, 25 years old, lefty, number 3 prospect on the team, former first rounder. So I'm fan of his. He's got some flexibility. He can play second base. He can play in the outfield. I mean, I think he can end up taking Chris Taylor's job at some point. So it's a little bit of a high strikeout rate, but he's another guy I'm interested in.
Sweet, sweet. Should be a fun season in LA. It is gonna be a little tighter, as you mentioned, because they
Mhm.
didn't lose a few pieces of the puzzle. But as an experienced Dodger detractor, I guess is the way I'll say it, you never count them out. They're so damn good. They're gonna spend money. They're gonna make it work. They're not gonna throw in the towel. So I still think they're the favorites in the West. I'm not gonna go away from that until it's proven otherwise. What's your thoughts on the finishing non-fantasy related Dodgers for 2023?
Yeah, I mean, I've been documented on podcasts saying that I do think that it's going to be not as smooth sailing as in years past. I do think it's going to be a lot closer with the Padres. I don't think it's something I would put money on because I wouldn't want to bet against my Dodgers. But just from a standpoint of just like pure talent, it just seems like the Padres are a little bit stronger. Like I feel a little safer in their rotation, especially with the fact that they just signed Michael Wacha there to give him a decent number 4, not have to rely on Nick Martinez and Seth Lugo as much in the back end. Obviously, they got Hader, great bullpen. Robert Suarez really stepped up. And then the top 3, those first 3 hitters of Soto, Tatis, Machado is, man, it's unbelievable. But I think the keys for the Padres is Tatis being healthy and those starters holding up really is I think if those things happen, I think the race is going to go to the wire, and I could see the Padres winning the division.
Yeah, it should be fun. It's almost here, about a month away, a little over a month away. It's going to be absolutely awesome, and can't wait to keep getting ready for the big draft season. Vegas is coming up and much, much more. So, Mr. Vlad Sedler, thanks for joining me, my friend. Before we take off, remind everybody where they can find you and what you got going on.
Yep. FTNFantasy.com, and just lots of good stuff. Mostly my VDP rankings. I mean, everything from cut line to underdog to 12 teamers, 15 teamers in NFBC, and I'm updating them weekly every time some lineup change happens or anything. It's very reactive to the market, but hopefully in the right way, in the good way. So FTNFantasy.com is where I'm at, and thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate it as always.
Always a blast, my friend. Look forward to next time, and make sure you guys check him out on the Twitter there at RotoGut. This was Bench with Bubba, your Los Angeles Dodgers season preview. Catch you all next time.